Hello folks, welcome to OTD, also known as On The Deck, where you can get all the sports you need in 10 minutes. My name is Adam Morduna. This is my mom, Gina.
He is a journalist.
She's the enthusiast.
I, again, must really love these sports topics because the bees are out here again today, and it's hot.
It's just hot more than anything else, and so we want to make sure that we get all that we need to say, get in today, because it's pretty warm today. And so we're going to talk about the NBA and where we are in the playoffs right now. We've got the Golden State Warriors, who just swept the Utah Jazz last night, and then the Cleveland Cavaliers sweeping the Toronto Raptors the night before. And so we got the two heavyweights have now swept basically every team. Yeah, the two rounds, every team that they've played this up to this point. And then we've got the other teams that are still battling and could potentially go to Game 6 or 7. And we're talking about the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets tonight. And then we still have the Washington Wizards and the Boston Celtics that are still battling as well.
And Washington and Boston are on the east, and San Antonio and Houston are on the west. Correct.
And so we're gonna talk about which matchups that we're maybe anticipating to play either of the heavyweights, meaning which team out of the West is gonna compete with Golden State in the Western Conference Finals, and which team out of the East is gonna compete with Cleveland at the Eastern Conference Final, or for the Eastern Conference Finals. And so again, we've got two matchups, and really who's the better matchup, I guess we should say, as far as, you know, who would we like to see and who really would challenge either of those teams. And so I might just toss it to you to kind of see what you think. Which side would you want to start with, the East or the West?
Well, I have two teams in mind that I think could challenge both Golden State and Cleveland. And the teams are called what?
Right.
Nobody, it honestly, the quick and short answer, Adam, and I'm not even trying to be glib, is it doesn't matter who wins these series because neither of them, it's going to be a Golden State Cavaliers matchup in the finals. Correct. But let's go to the eastern side of it, because you got the Boston Celtics and you've got the Washington Wizards, and aren't they 2-2 right now?
Yes, both. Right. Yes, both teams have
they
won.
are tied up. Yeah,
yes,
and both of them did they hold home court advantage?
Yes.
Okay. So the first two games of Boston won, and a whole lot of analysts are saying they had no business winning those games. Then they came back to Washington, and when you saw how Washington handled them at home, it kind of makes you question whether or not the Celtics did steal those games, because they've been beating them down. Yes. The Wizards were a team that we both said earlier, we felt like they had the best chance to challenge the Cavs. So I think that right now I'm looking at I think this will go to 6 games. I don't think it'll go to 7. Okay. And I think it's going to be the Wizards. That's what I honestly think. What do you think?
Yeah, I would like to say that it would be the Wizards because I do think they are more apt to hang with Cleveland, but the Wizards aren't doing well on the road. So therefore, I feel like when it goes back to Boston, Boston's going to be geared up and ready to go. And we know in a series of 7, it's the first one to 4. So I feel like in that regard, I think Boston's at least going to win the next one. I just worried about what Washington can do to close the deal, because they've been up in both of those games and just haven't been able to win on the road. So I'm worried about that. But I think for sure Boston's going to win the next one, since it will be in Boston.
So who do you think is going to come out of that series? Do you think it'll be Boston, or do you think it'll be Washington?
Well, I think it will be Boston. I think Boston will win. But if we're going to talk about who the better matchup will be,
well, we'll pick which one we think will do.
Let's go to the West then.
All right, you go ahead. You start.
Okay, yeah. I think honestly, I think Houston's going to win this series. I think Houston is just playing better basketball. They are inconsistent, but I think at the end of the day, they will be able to outlast.
And this one is also tied. Is this one 2-2 or 3-1?
Yes, it is 2-2. They've tied up the series. This could go to a Game 7 as well, but I definitely feel like Houston is just going to outlast San Antonio in this series.
I'm gonna agree with you. I do think it's going to go to 7 games. I think the one thing about the Spurs and Popovich is they are kind of this slow, boring team to watch. With all due respect to Kawhi Leonard, it's just kind of like, It's like eating not even a grape. It's like a saltine. You know what I mean? They're watching them play is like eating a saltine, but there is sustenance to that, and there's sodium on that cracker. So I get it. I do think it'll also go to a Game 7. I'm going to also call the Rockets, though, on this. I just think the Spurs have shown their hand. Tony Parker got hurt, and they're saying he's out. Not like he was helping that much anyway, but I think their rhythm and flow is off. But I do think they'll kicking another game or two.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the Rockets, when they are shooting well and playing well, I think they have a higher three-point percentage shot than anybody else in the league, which is saying something.
Right, exactly.
So I'm going to call the Rockets there too.
Right.
So now the second question is, we both called who we want. We split on the East. We're on the same page on the West. Who do you think is the better matchup for Cleveland?
Yeah, the better matchup, I personally do think it is the Wizards. I think they have a little bit more spring in their step. I think they can spread the floor out a little bit more. I think they just offer different energy than what Boston does. I think Cleveland has Boston's number. I think they just own them mentally.
I agree.
And I just feel like it's one of those situations where as long as Washington is, their elite guards with Bradley Beal and John Wall, as long as those guys are playing at a high level, I think it's going to be difficult for Cleveland to stop them. So I think the better matchup would be Washington Wizards. What about you?
I agree 100%, and the Celtics proved it out. We got to the end of the regular season, and the Celtics, and everybody was talking about who was going to win first place, who's getting number one seed. And the Celtics literally, I don't want to be crass, I don't want to say they, peed down their leg, but it really was that kind of beatdown. Like when the Cavs turned it on, the Celtics just didn't have enough.
Exactly.
Just mano y mano. When I look at the Wizards, I still think that the Cavs are deeper than the Wizards, but the Wizards got that Rough Rider in them.
They do.
And I don't think they're the better matchup. Cleveland's still going to win that series, but I don't believe they are going to sweep Washington.
No, I don't think so.
So
either.
Yeah, I'm going with that.
Yes.
So then back to the West side of it. We both picked the Rockets.
Yeah, and I do believe that's the better matchup. As far as things go, the Rockets can match Golden State with their long range shooting. They're younger, they're faster, they're a little bit more athletic. And I just feel like James Harden has really made his case for the MVP. I still obviously will go with Russ on that, but James Harden is MVP caliber. And not that Kawhi Leonard is an MVP caliber, but 1-on-5 we know in the playoffs doesn't work. And that's what it's been up to this point for the most part. And the Rockets are just going to be able to handle Golden State, even though I still think Golden State will win that series.
I agree with you. I think if you think better, it depends on who you want. If you want Golden State to win, you would be rooting for San Antonio.
Right.
Because Golden State is going to run through San Antonio, which they just did.
Yeah.
I think the Rockets are tricky for them.
They are tricky
I think the better matchup, like you just said, are the Rockets because they do the same thing.
Yes.
I think ultimately the depth of talent on the Dubs is going to outlast the Rockets.
And it's the consistency factor that the Houston Rockets
good point. That's a really good point. Right.
On a night in and night out basis. So
yeah, they're not super consistent. They don't you will get a great game out of Harden, and then sometimes here's the thing, if you live by the three, you die by the three.
Right.
The difference is that I really believe the Warriors have a complete game. Yes, the Splash Brothers will get you, and everybody up there can shoot threes, but they have a comprehensive inside-out game too.
Yes.
And I don't know that the Rockets 100%. They're very analytics. They percentage shot, blah blah blah. When it gets down time to play and fight, I really think the Dubs are going to get them. But I think that both of those teams, I think the Wizards and the Rockets are going to give our potential finals matchup a good run for their money.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The big thing that's really hurting these other teams is that they haven't swept. So they're going to be tired, and they're going to have a lot of things that they have to do to get themselves mentally and physically
They both
ready.
might have had to fight through a Game 7.
So, as one of our favorite analysts, Skip Bayless, says, these guys are going to have a big pound of flesh taken out of them before they reach Cleveland or Golden State. So
you're a former basketball player as well. You're an athlete. You know that those three-point shots, those jumpers, those finesse shots, a lot of that depends on your legs.
Correct.
You got to have the right legs underneath you. And if you run your legs out underneath a Game 7 somewhere, it's awfully hard to go up against a juggernaut who's been at home drinking Mai Tais.
And hanging out.
Been home resting and hanging out and relaxing.
Right.
So.
Well, we're going to continue to give you updates on this playoff series, and we're really excited because this is the best part of the NBA, and we're really excited to see what happens, and we'll see. We'll see if we're right.
Well, I picked the Wizards. We'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, folks, we want to say we appreciate your time, and we'll see you again.